Welcome to the November 13th Board of Health meeting. I am your host, Kevin Davis, and we'll be going through our nice short agenda. At 7 p.m., we have the public hearing on the Code of Conduct. And what I'd like to do first is take a liberty here and read through the Code of Conduct and make sure that everybody's on board with everything. And then we can have some discussion and then hold a vote. Hello, Mr. Baker. All right, so we're going to read through the Code of Conduct really quick. As adopted by the Littleton Board of Health at their November 13th, 2024 meeting, the obligations and commitments shall be assumed by all members of the Board of Health. This Code of Conduct sets forth a standard, a Code of Conduct for the Littleton Board of Health under the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the town of Littleton. As an elected public official, a Board of Health member has taken an oath to adhere to all federal laws, the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and the bylaws of the town of Littleton. This Code of Conduct outlines three general areas of member responsibility. One is the community responsibility, two is the relationship to the town administration, and three is the relationship to the fellow board members and other persons appearing before the Board of Health. Section 1, the community responsibility. A member in their relations with the community should, A, realize that their primary responsibility is to all Littleton residents, and the Board of Health members always represent the community. B, recognize that their function is policymaking and not administrative. C, remember that they are one of a team and must abide by all Board of Health decisions once they are made. D, be well informed concerning the duties of a Board of Health member on both the state and municipal issues in Littleton. E, accept the office of the Board of Health member as a means of unselfish public service and not in order to benefit personally or politically from his or her board activities. In particular, members of the board may not participate in decisions which affect their personal interest as defined by the state ethics laws. F, treat members of the public with respect without regard to differences of opinion. Members of the public should receive information which they request, and the Board of Health members should solicit all points of view in writing if there is not sufficient hearing time. Section 2, responsibility of the town administration. All direct reports to the Director of Health. A member in their relations with the town administration should, A, establish and update through the board clearly defined policies with which to govern and support the administration. B, recognize and support the administrative chain of command and refuse to act on complaints as an individual outside of the administration. C, refer all complaints to the Director of Health for solutions and only pursue satisfactory results through the frameworks of the Board of Health structure if such solutions fail. D, request assistance and information from town staff only through the Director of Health. E, limit requests for staff support and ensure that all requests go through the Director of Health. Section 3, relationship to fellow board members and other persons. A member in their relations with the fellow Board of Health members and other persons shall, A, accept differences of opinion and building blocks of our democratic process. B, always treat other members, town administration, board and committee members, and employees with personal respect and act in a civil manner towards them. C, concentrate all dialogue on the issue and refrain from personal criticism. D, conduct themselves to maintain public confidence in their local government and in their performance of the public trust. E, recognize that the Board of Health action at official meetings is binding and that they alone cannot bind the Board of Health outside such meetings. F, unless specifically exempted, for example, executive session, conduct the business of the public in a manner that promotes open and transparent government and maintain full compliance with the open meeting law, Mass General Law, Chapter 39, Section 23B. G, uphold the confidentiality of executive sessions and documents presented during the same and respect the privileged communications that exist in executive sessions. H, not withheld pertinent information on municipal matters or personal problems, either from members of their own Board of Health or from members of other bodies who may be seeking help and information on problems. I, not make statements or promises of how you will vote on matters that will come before the full Board of Health until you've had an opportunity to hear the pros and cons of the issue during a public meeting of the Board of Health. J, cooperate with the chair of the board in conducting in the conduct of meetings. K, treat persons who appear before the board with respect and dignity and in a manner free from discrimination, abuse, and harassment. L, act in a civil and professional manner at all board meetings. M, speak in a civil manner and not harass or bully residents, business owners, other board members, the town administrator, department heads, and employees, either in person, in writing, or on social media. N, conduct official business in such a manner as to give the clear impression that they cannot be improperly influenced in the performance of their official duties. O, not speak on behalf of the Board of Health and or Department of Health staff at other public meetings unless approved by the board. Finally, to enforce the code of conduct, the Board of Health shall enforce the code of conduct. Any Board of Health member violating the code of conduct may be subject to public censure by the Board of Health. During a meeting, after an initial warning, a member who acts in an inappropriate manner, is unruly or disorderly, may be removed from the meeting by a majority vote of the remaining members. That hereunto defines what we have come up with for the Board of Health Code of Conduct. Does anybody have any comment? Mr. Chair.
Just two small changes I would recommend on the first page under section 1, A. It says, realize that there are primary responsibilities to all Wilmington residents, and that Board of Health members always represent the community.
Yep.
Add the word that in front of Board of Health.
Yep.
Okay.
Got it.
And the only other one is also in section 1 under E. The first sentence ends with politically from his or her board activities. Could we change his or her to their board activities?
Which letter? E?
E.
Oh, there. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I only have those two small tweaks to mention.
Okay. Dan or Kevin, anything?
I'm an Oxford comma guy, so that first full paragraph talking about that we'll follow all federal laws, the laws of the Commonwealth. I like the comma and the bylaws of the town of Littleton, but I'm not going to die on the Oxford comma hill.
Well, I'm fine with that modification. That's fine.
Add it, please. I thought it had it everywhere else, Dan, that I was noticing.
Three changes to the as read. Insert that in at the appropriate spot, and 1A. Change on line 1E, change his or her to their, and an Oxford comma in the 1 to 3rd paragraph between Massachusetts and Maine on the final line. Does anybody else have any other changes? Okay, changes incorporated.
Noted.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that the Board of Health adopts the Littleton Board of Health Code of Conduct as edited.
Second.
I have a second. I have a motion and a second. I'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Wason.
Matt Wason, yes.
Mr. Baker.
Kevin Baker votes yes.
Kane.
Dan Kane votes yes.
Chair Kevin or the Vice Chair Kevin Davis votes yes. All right. We now have adopted our code of conduct. Excellent. It is now 7:10. Oh my goodness. And it's now 7:10 to go after the ID decision support tool. Mr. Wason, do we have any updates?
Yes, I do. Is my audio coming through with feedback?
No.
Not yet. It will.
Okay. One sec. Okay, here we go. Here's our update on infectious agents in our community. First, COVID-19, the KP311 variant is the majority of cases that we're seeing in the New England area at 75%. Vaccination data is now being posted by Massachusetts, so we can now see our town vaccination data. So for COVID-19, we are at 21% as of quite the delay in this data. It says obviously as of the 2nd of November, and it takes about a week to report that. So I'm sure it's gone up from there, but probably not a ton, but 21%, and we're in the middle of November. So that's not where we want it to be. Wastewater numbers are both very low, both below 200 as recent readings. And obviously our case counts are down to just 1 a week for the past couple of weeks. The arbovirus section, technically we're still moderate for EEE, but thank you. It is currently 32 degrees outside, and so we are getting cold enough. I think that's going to be it for the season, so I'm going to close that one down until next spring. Influenza, the influenza report is live and updated. It is currently low for Massachusetts. And also similarly, the vaccination rate for influenza is being posted, and we are at 35% for the town of Littleton. Lastly, RSV, this source has changed a little bit, so we're now going to get a percentage of tests that are percent positive directly from the CDC for this. So we are low, very early in the whatever potential RSV season is, and the percentage is right there. It's 3.22%. So it's really, really small, but it's not zero anymore. So typically in the off season, that is less than 1%, less than 0.5%. So the fact that it's at 3% means that the season is probably in its infancy, but starting to go. So as always, now becomes the cold weather's coming, and flu season is coming, and RSV season is coming. So all of our respiratory illnesses are out and about. So please make sure you're washing your hands and taking care of yourself. And if you have symptoms, please consider wearing a mask so that you protect others around you. That's all I have from the tool.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions or comments? No, hearing none. Awesome. Thank you so much for that information.
Yep.
Right. Completing our 710 ID support decision tool, we'll go right into administrative matters. We have in our packet, we've got 2 meeting minutes. And I must say, ahead of this, I did not get a chance to read over the October 23rd meeting minutes. So I'm not going to be able, I don't feel comfortable bringing that one forward, but it's up to the rest of you guys if you want to. August 28th, 7 p.m., we have the minutes. Does anybody have any comments on the August 28th minutes? Okay, hearing none. Can I have a motion?
I'd just like to make one edit for the record. It says co-chair for Kevin Davis. Change it to vice chair.
He's the vice chair. Yeah. Any others? Okay. Anyone? Anyone?
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes of August 28th, 2024 as amended.
I have a motion.
I'll second.
Motioned and seconded. All right. I'll take a vote. Matt Wason.
Matt Wason, yes.
Kevin Baker.
Kevin Baker abstains.
Dan Kane.
Dan Kane votes yes.
And the vice chair, Kevin Davis, votes yes. We have 3 voting members in the positive, so the meeting minutes for August 28th are accepted. All right. I was like, why isn't Kevin speaking? Oh, that's why. Okay. The October 9th meeting minutes. We have them next. Does anybody have any changes? I read through them and I didn't see anything that popped out.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I have a motion.
Second,
Motioned and seconded. Let's take a roll call vote. Mr. Kane,
Dan Kane votes yes.
Mr. Baker,
Kevin Baker votes yes.
Mr. Wason,
Matt Wason abstains.
and Kevin Davis votes yes. 3 members present. Voting in the affirmative, we have accepted the meeting minutes. I don't have access to pull up the other ones for the October 28th. I couldn't find them on the site, so I haven't been able to read them, but we do have enough members here. If they were all present, if they want to vote on that, I'm all for it, but I don't have them for the 23rd. So
I haven't seen them.
okay, so then let's push that to the next meeting if possible. Is that okay, Francis?
I haven't even seen them, so yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right. At the end of our packet, we also have a listing of Board of Health schedule, the proposed Board of Health schedule for 2025. You can see we have single meeting dates for each of the months going forward, the 15th, 19th, so forth. The thing that we want to point out is that the material continued hearing is due on that particular date, and the material for new applicant information is due, as you can see, approximately 2 weeks prior to the meeting. Does anybody have any comments on this? We had talked about this at a previous meeting, and we're just putting pen to paper to try to make sure that we have that. So Brenda
I
has
can,
enough.
I can just say, when we were looking at this, I asked for it to be made in the model of, same as the planning board. So we have continued hearings, we have new hearings with dates of materials due, so we all have enough time, we can look at it and if need be, make edits. Or we might need to make posting or butter notices. And then we can go to 1 a month, or if the board wants to stay consistent with what we've done in the past, that's fine too. If we did do once a month, we would just make a notation, additional meetings as required or needed. Because if something does come up, we want to try to get that as soon as possible, even if we don't have a meeting date till much later in the month for public hearings.
Yeah, I'm
And,
actually- how does this flow around holidays and such? It looks like we're pretty good. We're outside of the June, so let's see, January, we're outside of MLK. February, there's no federal holidays in February?
There
Oh,
probably is.
President's
I didn't-
Week. Actually, is the 19th when we're away? Is that when schools are closed on the
It's
19th?
school vacation week. Not February 19th is school vacation week.
So we want to move that to the week before, the week after. Which way?
4.
Forward? So the following week?
I was going to say that the week prior.
The week prior. Okay.
12th.
Yeah.
So I guess in general, my question was, so I put it as the 3rd week of the month, basically split between the 2 that we already do, kind of. Does that week work for everybody?
That week works for me. I'm just walking through it to make sure that it isn't the holiday week. And so the 19th is the holiday week. Is the 16th also the holiday week for the secondary spring break?
April vacation is the week after that.
All right, so we're good on that one. 21st is not a holiday, right? 18th, July 4th, August 20th. Making sure that also our due dates are not due in the week of a vacation, September 1st, October 15th. November 19th is not, and December 17th. Okay. Unless anybody else has objections to where the meeting is, I think we're all good with that. And then as a fallback, if we need to add something, we would add it if this is the third week, would we add it the first week of the month if we needed to give some separation?
Most likely, depending, I mean, it'll mostly be variance requests will be the issue, so as soon as they come in, I'll bring it to the board and see what availability looks like to add an additional meeting. But ideally, probably the first week would probably wouldn't be happening, yeah.
Is everybody okay with that?
We're currently on a second and fourth, correct?
Yeah, we are.
So knowing that second and fourth just fits with like Dave and services and other schedules, is it can actually be harder to go to third, or do we stick with second and then say when we need to add a week, it's always in the fourth? I just know our resources are dedicated second and fourth, and we don't have any problems with that. Switching it to third, we need to ask.
Good
Oh.
question.
Because
Thank you for Dave.
yeah, so if as long as we're staying virtual, then yes, our biggest challenge is just making sure that Francis is available, Brenda if she's available, and that LCTV has availability. I don't know how that third week falls with other town boards or stuff that may
Right.
overlap, because that's usually their biggest limitation is when they have more meetings than they have staff.
I don't want to conflict with something else on Wednesdays of the third.
Okay. So why don't we, since we're just having a discussion, this is just the non-voted thing. Why don't we see what the availability is for town, making sure it avoids major meetings, yada, yada, yada. And
I'll
if,
bring a new proposed, okay.
yeah, and then if not, do we want to fall back to the second, adding the fourth, or have the fourth adding I think we should do the second, adding the fourth. That makes the most sense to me.
Fourth will always run into holidays at the end of the year.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I'll
Right.
make one for the next meeting.
Yeah. Speaking of holidays for the next meeting, speaking of holidays, have we already removed the November meeting on the 27th?
Last meeting looks like we were looking at just doing the 11th.
Just oh, that's right. We already walked through all this. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Just making sure. All right. Yes, Mr. Baker.
Just one thing on the proposed Board of Health meeting schedule. Some of the continued hearing.
Yeah, I saw that too.
So, yeah, they're just transposed, so just make sure they're balanced.
I'll take care of the new copy.
Oh yeah. How about that? Whoopsies.
But this is great. I think it'll bring some clarity to people who are trying to get materials in and want to be aware of the deadlines. So it's great.
And we're going to post this on the website as soon as we review it the next time, or do we feel we're
I'm also working on a draft online template for applying for variances instead of us just receiving them and trying to run around, because there's no process right now and it's causing issues with me at least. So I can't imagine what you guys are dealing with. So
well? So let's just get that workflow set up and roll with it.
Yep.
Okay. Likey. Does anybody else have any other comments on that before we move to our next item? Nothing. Okay. Correspondence. I did receive correspondence from a citizen, and it's about the livestock inspections, the stable inspections. This is something that we're supposed to be doing, or the town was supposed to be. The town hasn't had a stable inspection person for a very long time, apparently. And this needs to kind of be handled. Not only do we want to know what kind of stables and chicken coops and things like that we have around, but if there comes a time where H5N1 starts affecting livestock, or there is bird flu that starts to come around and we need to start to worry about flock health and things like that, that we need to know where those kinds of things are. So how do we want to start to address that as a board?
can I just put one initial thought in?
Sure.
Yeah. So this is something I noticed too. One of our next items coming up is going to be a stable regulation. And that will fall in line because we don't have one right now. We kind of just permitted it and there's not much to the application in the past. And it looks like the animal inspector is what we're going off of. I kind of think those inspections should be done together as an animal inspection and also Board of Health inspection. So both the inspector for health and the animal control officer should be going out and doing the inspection together, looking at both sides of the equation, which we haven't done before. And that's, I think, how we should be issuing stable permits going forward.
Okay.
So having a good check and balance.
I think that makes sense. The other thing that we need to make sure is that as we work through some of these things, we need to make sure that the individuals can actually, call up someone needs to take the lead. I would assume that would be the Board of Health taking the lead on the inspections because we need to worry about the manure plan and things like that go with it. And that it should be all like, in order and all that kind of good stuff. And then when we go out to do the inspection, that we call them in advance and say, hey, blah, blah, blah. So that type of thing, making sure that everybody is cool and copacetic. Okay. Are we going to look at, sorry, go ahead, Matt. It looks like you were going to say something. Oh, no. Okay. Okay, great. So do we want to put something on our next meeting then to look at that? Or do you want to give yourself a little bit of time?
I'll try to get it together for the next meeting for the draft regulation. But I'll still try to carry forward with the stable permits in general anyway. We've identified a few new ones that we haven't caught in the past as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, Dan.
I know we've talked about this in the past, about stable inspections, livestock inspections, farm inspections, and that I thought Jim had actually said they had been doing them in conjunction with the animal inspector, with Jim doing the health stuff and the animal inspector doing the animal piece of it. So it's not, at least it had been shared with us that it had been occurring and it had been a tag team effort. So if that's not the case, then it's obviously good and important to know. But I do know this has come up in the past. I think it was around permitting and fees of how does that work. I think was what kind of prompted the discussion, but it was 6 months to a year ago. But this did come up and we did talk about it. So and it sounded like it had been occurring, and there was, as we said, it should be both a two-side, partnership kind of piece for this. But
The person
yeah,
that
I think we
reached out-
definitely.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say. So yeah, I mean, if there is some, if there's a concern or it's not clear that it's actually been done or been done completely, or some confusion of how it's been done, then yes, definitely both an SOP for what the process is, but then also let's clarify the regulation as well of what exactly needs to be accomplished in the requirements.
Yeah, absolutely. Violent agreement. The reason why I'm bringing it up is the person also said in their the correspondence that it had been well over 2 years since they had actually received an inspection. So
I can see that. I think there's just been some miscommunications maybe in the past, but
Sure.
as part of the new inspection forms, we will have inspection forms and it'll say who was at the inspection, when it was done and all that as well. So we'll have more transparency in our record keeping there as well.
awesome.
We don't really have that in the past at all. It's a
Would-
little confusing.
Would you please request from Jim all records of the prior inspections for the last several years, for example?
I can. Yep.
And apparently there was
Starting point.
also, sorry, go ahead, Matt. You were cutting out.
So we have a starting point to reference how it's been done in the past and where we're at with anybody.
And apparently it was also way back when, it was also a single individual had a list of the stuff. I'll have to reach out to the correspondence to get the name of who the person is, Francis, that had it originally in town. And then maybe we can find those records as well.
Sure.
Okay. Anybody else have anything on that? Anybody else have any other correspondence? Yes, Kevin.
I received the email from Francis regarding the problem with the wastewater at the point over the weekend, was it? And,
Yep.
it's real concerning for me because this thing's been going on a long time. And the owner of that property was supposed to put in a bunch of different mitigations to make sure this kind of thing didn't happen. And we kind of been left in the dark on a local level. And I know DPH has gotten involved, and there have been some, I guess, agreements put in place that the owner of the property has agreed to, that DPH has sort of been trying to enforce. And I'm wondering if there's anything that we can do to help the enforcement of these things, so that we don't have this kind of thing happen, because it shouldn't.
Yeah, I received Kevin's email about that. I did not know that, so I think that's probably a good agenda
I
item
mean,
for the
there have been
next
businesses
meeting.
that have been forced to close, permanent, because of the situation that's been happening up there for maybe like 5 years, however many years. And it's like, everybody's just kind of like sweeping it under the mat. Like, there's not a problem. And there's a problem. And it keeps happening. And now that we have somebody like Francis as a health director here to take the ball and run it in between meetings, maybe we could actually make a difference and get something done.
I agree.
And same thing as last one. Jim should be aware of some of that history and should have some records for us, right? Because if
So-
anything had gone to DPH, it would have gone through him. So,
And the
see if we can
TA
get
probably
back
has a copy of it.
years.
So I can track down what we may have in the back end and put it as an agenda item for the next meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, there was a
The point,
there was a business specifically that was on the upper level, that was on the same level as Tavern in the Square, that had an issue and needed to close because of it.
Possibly Great Road Kitchen, maybe.
No, it wasn't Great Road Kitchen. It
Well, I
was
think there was a grease trap that was never installed or improperly installed that was connected to Tavern in the Square, and then it failed and caused a flood of horrible ramifications. And I don't know who took responsibility for that, but I do know where we are now. And the Point just closed this weekend because it's something that's very similar that caused a lot of problems before. So, thanks for letting us know about it.
Yeah, of course.
Let's see what we can do.
yeah, and I know there was a problem at Starbucks a couple of times, and yeah, there was a whole bunch of things that have happened because of that.
Starbucks was this weekend as well, so.
Yes, Dan.
the points are kind of a challenge for us. Is I'm sure if you look back and read through that, our jurisdiction over the sewage there, because of their volume, falls under DEP, not us, the way the regs are written. So that we have somewhat limited ability to act on that piece of it, other than in coordination with DEP. However, obviously, if we've had a contamination as a result of backups and that falls on us as health risk. And I'm assuming that the three places that were flooded have been inspected, they're cleaned, they're inspected, they're habitable again, because that piece of it is where we have authority and responsibility. That, habitability and adequate water, adequate drainage, and cleanliness, that falls under us. So that I'm assuming those things have been done, that we got that there was a flood, and I'm assuming that has been cleaned up, inspected, and approval for occupancy has been put back in place between the Board of Health and the building commissioner and any of the other inspectors that may be involved. And it came to you, did you report it to DEP?
I have not.
Or-
So I didn't know this was a long-standing issue, so that I'm going to reach out to my contact at DEP and note that it's a recurring item. And I think at that point, they have to react to that because it's not a first-time instance.
This is like
So although we don't have jurisdiction, they should be able to do certain mitigations beyond what is currently in place.
I think the mitigation was to, high flow times over the weekends. They were to install a couple storage tanks, holding tanks, so that they didn't surcharge the system. And that was the last I heard, was there was a plan to do that.
Okay.
there was also supposed to be a plan to go from phase 1 to phase 2 at some point. I thought, maybe, don't remember, kind of fuzzy. Okay.
Yeah, I think the state
Yeah.
will enlighten a lot of information we'll be able to pull together for the next meeting.
Definitely. Happy reading.
All right. Does anybody else have anything? Mr. Wason.
If I could ask Francis, since we only have one more meeting left in the calendar year, could you give us a quarterly update on FY25 Q1 then at that meeting?
Yep. So at the December meeting, we're going to get a report for basically the last 6 months or so of what we've been going through, what should be noted, what should be changed, along with the budget for next year that's being proposed. So this will all be covered in that quarterly report next month. So I'll get that to you as early as I can.
That's all.
All right. I've also been looking at the attendees as we've been going through, and I haven't seen any other attendees besides the people on the panel. So does anybody else have any other correspondence? Yes, Dan.
I don't have correspondence, but just a couple quick questions and updates. Just so folks know, you may remember back that we had been requested to look at a well for the low end of Spectacle Pond for commercial construction there right near Air Road. And there was a no cut into the new pavement on Spectacle Pond. They did go before the select board. It was approved and construction has started. So it looks like construction on the project has started, and there it looks like construction for the water connection across Spec Pond is there. So just again, not necessarily under us, except it was the well access and close to the transfer station and the former waste site. Looks like that has been resolved and that piece is done. So I believe we had approved the septic plan for that facility. It was just the well was the question and the holdup for them. So just for those folks who don't drive down that stretch of road, that just kind of closing that loop a little bit, that kind of was the resolution for that. I did have two other quick questions around air quality. So we'd gotten the grant for air quality monitoring 6 or 7 weeks ago. We're getting to be wintertime. I was wondering what the plan, the timeline is. I think when last we heard, it was working with IT to identify some potential, not necessarily air quality locations, but places where we had electricity and internet connections for the devices. Could you have any updates and timelines for that project?
Yep. Next week, we should be able to start some installations in some spots. We're trying to be a little creative, so we've reached out to the schools. We've also reached out to water and electric because there's some areas there and some monitoring stations. They might be able to put some sensors. And we're also looking at the public buildings. So we should be able to provide an update probably next week on where locations look most feasible.
And
Is that going to be final locations, or is that going to come to us as a proposal for locations? I'll be honest, I would love the Board of Health to be able to have some input as a board and not just the department of perhaps looking at the looking at the sites and maybe making some recommendations or at least be able to provide some public level of input as the Board of Health representing the community, having an opportunity to provide some input of where those are going, that it's not just the old joke of why you looking for your keys under the street light because this is where the street light is. That just because that's a place, those are places with internet and electricity, they may not be the most useful data gathering locations. And I think it might be nice if we had an opportunity for the public and the board to provide some input, but I'm not sure what other members may feel about that.
Mr. Baker or Mr. Wason? Mr. Baker.
Yeah, I mean, we've had many meetings about air quality in town, and I can think of at least like 3 locations where I think we should focus some of these efforts. And then, get input from other people too on where they think it will work. And if we need, some batteries and we need some like a MiFi thing there, get the internet to connect, like let's figure that out.
Mr. Wason.
I agree. I think that we need to make sure we're utilizing this opportunity to be as representative as possible. And kind of, if we fence ourselves in with only where we can easily do it on top of schools and public buildings. I do not think that will necessarily be representative of the community as a whole.
And speaking for myself as a computer scientist and all kinds of fun things, and working with other agencies, I can tell you putting up a bunch of these with solar panels and batteries and battery charging things and all that other kind of and connectivity, this is not a problem that we need to have to worry about something already in place. There are cellular connections, there are Wi-Fi 6 connections that we can, Wi-Fi 7 connections that we can take advantage of that will allow you to create mesh networks and things like that. The electric company already uses a network of comms for all of their new power meters and things like that. So there may be a way to tap into some of those devices to have signal and data go back to the Littleton Electric Company to go get that data back. So there are definite ways to go handle all of that information. So I'm very confident that we can solve that problem. I have no problems whatsoever with that. Okay. I would look forward to having some input on that as well. Anybody else? Hearing nothing else. Yes, Dan.
Sorry, following up on the air quality piece. I brought forward a concern as a resident about 2 months ago around air quality from the quarry and some of at least the potential for quarry dust, which is a potential respiratory health hazard. Once we get to snowfall, any air quality measurements for that source is potentially not representative of the rest of the year. So I guess I'm wondering, what our status is on that, where we are, what our plan is, or are we now pushed back off to spring and waiting for snow to melt before we can actually get meaningful data?
So originally the facility was communicative, and as soon as I wanted to go on site, they were not. So I have talked to DEP, and we're going to be conducting a surprise inspection of the full site, probably in the next week or so. She said she couldn't do it this week, but probably next week.
Okay. Any air sampling? Have we set up any air sampling around the site?
So that would be part of DEP conducting that, because we don't have the tools to do that. So they'll be setting up any monitoring. She might want to follow up with any residents who had issues or concerns and maybe collect samples at their properties as well. But she said we need to get on the site first to see what we see and then react to surrounding environments.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, so any other board member updates, comments for discussion? Again, I see no attendees other than the people on the panel. So, yes, Mr. Baker.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion heard.
I'll second.
And a second. So we have a motion and a second. Let's take a vote. We'll go backwards. Mr. Wason.
No, Mason, yes.
Mr. Kane.
Kane votes yes.
Mr. Baker.
Kevin Baker votes yes.
And the chair, Kevin Davis, votes yes. Okay. Our meeting is here adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.